Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, there will be baseball after all, as I'm sure you heard by now. Finally, the owners, MLB owners, and the Players Union have come to an agreement, so we will have a full 162-game season. Not that I had any big doubt, but yeah, it was getting scary a little bit then, and it looks like they were starting to trim games, but finally, they did come together on the deal, but that's not really the big news of the day, even though it is kind of important. The real big news of the day is that Brian Cashman put down the hammer on a big five-player deal, sending Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela to Minnesota and getting back former MVP Josh Donaldson, as well as some add-on pieces such as Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and Ben Rortvedt. Now, I'll give you a breakdown of all three of these players if you're not too familiar with them, give you kind of the tail of the tape, and kind of analyze the trade, who won, who lost, was it a good trade, was it a bad trade? We'll get into all that, and of course, all the details of this new collective bargaining agreement between the MLB owners and the Players Association. Now, Yankee fans were growing impatient with Brian Cashman. Of course, they all wanted a big deal, get someone like Carlos Correa here, or do something to get Trevor Story in here. And again, I really wasn't in favor of getting any of those big-name shortstops, especially their right-handed power hitters. The Yankees have plenty of that. The only one I was kind of interested in is maybe Seager, but of course he went to Texas, so that's all off the table. So Cashman had to get a little crafty here to improve the team a little bit, and this was a great deal. So we'll break down each of the three players that the Yankees got in the deal. Again, starting off with Josh Donaldson, which is probably the biggest piece, at least on the Yankees side, coming in. Now, he's a little bit on the old side, 36 years old, but still, rather serviceable last season. Played 135 games. Now, he has had some injury bugs over the years, but at least last season, 135 games, hit .247 with 26 home runs, and his contract's not terrible. He's signed through this season and next year, and in 24, there's an option for him. So really, the Yankees only kind of stuck with him for 2 seasons. So again, that's not terrible, and he's a pretty good player. Again, not what he was maybe 5-6 years ago, but he was the MVP in 2015. 3-time All-Star, 2-time Silver Slugger, and again, the third baseman, very serviceable there. Again, not going to be slick as maybe Gio Urshela at third base, but can at least hold down the fort there. So, pretty good deal for the Yankees in that. And now the other players including the deal has been Isaiah Kiner-Falefa. And he comes in really a couple days beforehand. Minnesota got him in a deal with Texas. So literally, he was like a Minnesota Twin for like maybe 24 hours, and then he got shipped to the Yankees. Rather good himself. Now we just know he's not going to be the long-term deal. Obviously, he's just going to be, as they say, holding down the fort, or the new term stopgap for Anthony Volpe. Give Volpe a little more time to develop in the minors. And this guy, now he's a former Gold Glover. He could play some shortstop as well as third base, so a little versatile there. Not really much with the bat. A lifetime 265 hitter. Okay, last season he did hit 271. Not great, wow, but okay. 9 home runs, 53 RBIs. So, he kind of chips away there a little bit. And again, but you're not really expecting him really to, put up, big numbers there. Just kind of play good defense is why they got him, do a little bit hitting, and then, just hold down the fort until when they feel that Volpe is ready to come in. And also, if you want to compare him and Gio Urshela, he's 26, Urshela is 30, so at least you get a little more age with him. And of course, he's under control for quite a number of the next few years. So again, you don't have to worry about him in terms of losing him for free agents or anything like that. And of course, the third piece of this, getting Ben Rortvedt. Not much to say about him. Only played 39 games last season. Hit 169. Again, he was a rookie last season, so not really much to judge him on. But he is a lefty bat, so again, it adds a lefty bat to the Yankee lineup, which they always use. Again, they always seem to be a little right-handed happy. Now, coming into the season, they're going to have Gallo there, and of course, you have Aaron Hicks, who's a switch hitter, so he could bat left. So you got a couple of lefty bats in there. You can add him in there, and we'll see, what they do if they're able to get back Rizzo. Then now you can have like 4 bats in there just to balance out the lineup, which again, the Yankees have been having issues with there. Now, in terms of the catching position itself, again, you lose a lot of thump with Gary. But, Higgy's going to be there, of course, we know. And, of course, with Ben, it's still a little thin there. Higgy himself, when they gave him more time last season, he was barely hitting under 200 himself. So I just think, the catching position is a little thin there on the Yankee side. So I'm not going to be shocked if Cashman maybe brings in some, whether he makes a deal or maybe just brings in a free agent, just create a little more competition there. Because, okay, maybe defensively they might okay, but you still want a little more hitting out of the catching position. And for, just Gary Sanchez in general, just kind of sad to see him going away, but it seemed like the Yankees just got, fed up with him. Just for whatever reason, he's never seemed to progress here. And again, it was always dangerous with the long ball, but we've seen the miscues in the field. Some situations where he's setting down to receive a pitch and the ball goes over his head. He just like totally misses it. Number of different miscues that way. You don't know if it's the pitcher's fault or his fault, but probably most of the time it was his fault, because I'm sure it's probably part of the reason why they went to ship him out. And his hitting-wise, he was basically just a strikeout machine, a 200 hitter. Yeah, he'll get his 25 home runs, but just too many swings and misses. And if you get someone who's not as dangerous with the bat, with the long ball, you need to make more contact. And again, one of the main problems the Yankees had last season was that just you had too many players just hitting 200 or under, and it's just you're not gonna score runs, and you're not gonna win games that way. So unfortunately for Gary, maybe a fresh start will help him out, and maybe just it'll click in for him and he could flourish. But kind of sad to see him go, because he came up through the Yankee system. You want to see like a guy like that stay around for 10, 15 years, like a Posada or something like that. But I guess it wasn't meant to be. And for Urshela, you look at it, if you want to give talent, and you want to give talent that's under control in terms of their contract, and that's very appetizing for other teams, you have to give something to get something. Urshela, all right, he didn't have a great season in 2021. But he's still quite young, and he's had maybe 2 good years with the Yankees, 2019, 2020. So there's a track record there that he should have a pretty decent comeback in 2022. But for the Yankees, I think it's a good move, because perhaps it's a good situation where in 19 and in 20, perhaps you got the best we've gotten out of Urshela. I mean, he'll be good defensively for the next 6 years. That's not a problem. But offensive wise, he did take a dip last season. So maybe the Yankees figure out, you know what? We probably got the best we got out of this guy. He's marketable now. Let's ship him out. Let him get him out of there, and bring another shortstop / third baseman in. So it was a good move on that part. Again, I'm probably sure more Yankee fans are going to be sad to see Gio go over Gary. Again, I think a lot of Yankee fans want to take Gary, put him in a Burr-like bag, and throw him into the East River. But nevertheless, they're both gone, and now the Yankees are going to have Donaldson there. Again, you have to worry about the age a little bit, maybe some injuries, again, because he's had a track record of some injuries. 2017, 18, he did miss a significant amount of time, and he's kind of bounced around a little bit. This guy came up with Oakland, he was with Toronto, then went with Cleveland a little bit, then Atlanta. Never really seems to find a home for some reason, so I don't know if that's an attitude thing. And plus, we got to look into the situation where, if you may recall last season, he was one of the players that called out Garrett Cole for using the spider tactic, or saying, well, Cole's one of those guys that use a known substance. Well, now these two guys are going to be in the same clubhouse, so I guess it's business, whether they'll put their head down and go to work. But it is kind of interesting now that these two guys seem like they wanted to come to blows last season in some of those games, and now they're teammates. But that's just the way the game goes. So for the trade itself, if I have to evaluate it, they'll give it a B+. I'm not blown away by it, but it's just it fits all the it dots all the T's and dots all the I's and crosses all the T's in that respect. The Yankees kind of unload, get rid of Gary Sanchez. They signed him to an arbitration deal this year for $8 million, but after the season, he was going to be a full free agent, and you don't get any sense that they wouldn't want to bring him back on some deals. So you kind of unload him, get rid of him, and just, again, maybe it was a problem. It seemed like obviously he rubbed Girardi wrong way a few years ago, and maybe he just rubbed Aaron Boone the wrong way and Cashman the wrong way, and just the whole team in general. Maybe it was best for him to move on, because, again, it just seemed like something here just wasn't really developing the way he should have. So he's gone, and of course, Gio Urshela, again, a good player, great defensive player, but he is what he is. That's probably the best we're going to see out of him. So if you can move him, bring someone else in here just to sort of hold down the fort a little bit until Volpe is ready, it's a good move. Again, kind of Falefa, again, former Gold Glove winner from 2020, so he could be just as good as Gio, and again, he could play both third baseman and shortstop. And now it's just going to be interesting what they do at first base, just because, right now you're looking at maybe a platoon situation with Voit and DJ, and of course Glayball's going to be at second base. So, if they make a move now to bring in Rizzo, now you have like 3 first basemen, and that's going to be a little interesting. So we're going to see how this all pans out. But of course now Donaldson is going to Yankee, and of course, unfortunately for Donaldson as well as kind of Falefa, they're coming with beards, so they're going to have to shave them. Now, as mentioned on previous episodes, the Yankees were kicking the tires with the Oakland A's on making a trade for their first baseman, Matt Olson. Ultimately, he ends up with the Braves in a trade. They had to give up 4 players for him. So I guess with the Yankees, supposedly, Oakland was asking for Volpe in the deal, and of course the Yankees said no, hands off. So kind of got nixed there, and that's kind of why Olson went elsewhere. And I didn't think the Olson thing would happen, because I just think the Yankees just rather buy someone outright, bring them in, whether it's Rizzo or Freddie Freeman type like that, versus having to give up prospects, then have to also pay the guy a boatload of money 2 or 3 years later. So Olson ends up with the Braves. And, for the Yankees, again, I didn't think they'd make a deal, and just goes to show you how much they're really looking at Volpe, for the future. And one Yankee that might be happy to see Gio Urshela leave is Miguel Andruw, who Gio Urshela swiped his job a couple of seasons ago. mainly because of Andujar's fault, some poor play, but also poor defensively, and having these nagging injuries. Well, unfortunately, Andujar had a little problem of his own back down in the DR. Actually got held up at gunpoint by a couple of robbers. Supposedly they took his wristwatch, it was worth like $7,000. Also took like his father's truck. Luckily, no one was hurt, and Andujar was able to report in camp on time, but now he has to worry about Josh Donaldson. And before Cashman pulled off the big trade, he also made little smaller moves, which maybe didn't get too much headlines, but it's worth noting. The Yankees are going to bring back Locastro, who, remember, was up last season for a cup of coffee. They got him in a trade from Arizona, and like a couple days later, runs into the wall in left field, bangs his knees, tears the ACL, and he was pretty much done for the season. Well, after the season, basically Boston picked him up on waivers. I don't know why, and then dumped him 2 weeks later, so he was kind of out there, and I guess Cashman wanted him back, so Cashman signed him to a major league deal. Deal hasn't been officially announced yet in terms of the years and money, but they say it's going to be at least a little over the league minimum. And Tim Locastro, I don't know what Cashman sees in him. I mean, it doesn't give you much with the bat. He's just more of a defensive guy, maybe on the base, late inning speed on the bases. I don't know why we want to bring a guy back who's coming off a torn knee, but obviously he'll be in camp, and I'll also be joining him a familiar face, Manuel Banuelos, who, remember, was part of one of the Yankee big pitching prospects a couple of seasons ago. Never really panned out the way we thought he would, and kind of bounced around the majors a little bit. He'll be invited to camp and possibly be able to compete for a job. And as a left-hander, you always want a left-hander in the mix. Probably don't think he'll make the team, but it looks nice to see Manny back. Also, another invitee to camp has been Ronald Guzman. Nothing really spectacular about him. They signed him to a minor league deal to invite him to camp. With the Texas Rangers system for a couple of years, came up in 2018, but has kind of declined since. And then, not someone you would seriously think is going to make the team, but I guess does create some competition. And of course, as a first baseman, left-hander, lefty thrower, lefty bat, kind of what you want ideally. Get Rizzo. Very like that. So right at the camp, kind of a nothing move, but worth mentioning. Which kind of brings me, what I think moves left for the Yankees is, first base to bring Rizzo. Again, I liked him last season. I would like for them to bring him back. And again, that's going to leave probably Luke Voigt as the odd man out. So if Cashman could do kind of one of these trades, similarly did with Sanchez and Urshela, package one of these two players, something like that, maybe a prospect together to ship them out, be all the better just to free up some space there. And maybe this DJ LeMahieu could kind of be a jack of all trades because, he can play second, he can play third, and he can play first. So LeMahieu could just play all three positions at different times. Again, Donaldson, 36 years old, he's going to want some days off. So plenty of time for LeMahieu to play some third base. And, of course, give Rizzo a night off maybe against a lefty. You could put DJ at first base. And if Gleyber Torres, who knows, he pulls a hammer or quaddy. LeMahieu, when he originally came, it was a second baseman. Sure, he can still play the position. So that'd be the best thing for the Yankees to do. And again, maybe just bring someone else back here for catcher, unless they feel perhaps maybe Austin Wells might be ready to compete. Not sure if he's at that level yet, but that could be what they're thinking. And if he wants to take the job, then maybe it'll be his, because I think at least hitting-wise, he'll be better than Higgy and Rovette. But of course, right now, he just may not be ready yet. And again, I just think they may bring in just one more player for catcher, just kind of create some competition there, give him some better quality. And Bendis might be gone before you even know it. And of course, always looking around the bullpen to tinker things. Now, they put Zach Britton officially on the 60-day IL. Of course, I remember last season he had to go down with the Tommy John surgery, so he's not going to be ready to maybe at least the second half of the season. See how that all plays out. So if they can maybe bring in another bullpen arm, that could be a good idea as well. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, Major League Baseball, the owners as well as the players union finally came to an agreement. They had a deadline which got pushed back a million times, and after 99 days of being officially locked out by the owners, they might as well have gone for 100, but I guess they didn't do it. On March 10th, both sides finally came to agreement, and the owners voted for it 30-0 unanimously, so they all seem to be on board with it. And we will have baseball starting. The season will be starting April 7th, and again, it'll be a full 162-game season. But you may not know all the new little tweaks and rules that's going to be with this new collective bargaining agreement, so we'll get into that. Of course, yes, most of it was to do with the league minimums for rookies and veteran players, as well as some revenue sharing opportunities. Those were kind of the main things, but there will also be some tweaks to the rule of the game, the format, things you may not used to, and some things some traditional baseball people are not going to like. Now, the big one, of course, the change of the game is going to be now the designated hitter in both leagues, which is going to drive some traditional baseball National League fans kind of nuts. And we kind of got into this a couple of episodes ago. They mentioned it was on the table. Well, it is going to be official. You will have a DH in both leagues. And, of course, speaking of which, Nelson Cruz, the ageless wonder, I think he's like 45 years old right now, actually signed with the National League, Washington Nationals. So he's kind of like the first National League DH, as they kind of quote unquote. So Again, this is all done for more offense. And, I just think, it's something that you just see was coming around the corner. More people want it. It leads to more offense, which leads to more ratings. And the way these pitches now, it is babies. They baby these pitches. They don't want them running the bases. They don't want them breaking fingers and wrists and stuff like that. So, with some of these ridiculous contracts that get out there, you just know at some point this was going to happen. And now 2022 will be the year it does. Baseball is also going to throw out the infamous Game 163, which usually occurs when two teams are tied in a division and they have that kind of one-game type of playoff. Well, they're going to do away with that. And there's been some infamous ones over the years that you may recall. The Bucky Dent home run game at Fenway Park in '78, as well. Local here in New York, '99. Al Leiter throwing a complete game at the Cincinnati Reds, just to name a few. Well, baseball wants to get rid of it. The reason being is that now the one extra game kind of pushes the season back, which pushes the playoffs back and potentially, bleeds the World Series into November, which baseball is trying to avoid. So there'll be no Game 163, and instead they'll try to use some sort of stats or standings or, performance against other teams, stuff like that, to determine who's the division winner if a tie like that occurs, and you need to pick a winner. And major league teams and possibly players can make a little bit more moolah. They're going to allow now advertising decal and stickers on the uniform as well as the helmet. And of course, I'm sure Yankee fans are familiar. We kind of have this ready with the little Nike thing that the Yankees have on their uniform. Well, see this to get, explode more around baseball. It's going to be an opportunity for advertising dollars. And I'm sure it's a situation where maybe the players and the teams are kind of going to work out something like that where they're going to make money off this. So, I just think it's a little bad for the uniform, especially like some of these classic uniforms, like the Red Sox uniform, the Yankee uniform, to have like a Pepsi logo on or something like that. Hope it doesn't get to that, so we'll see how this rolls out. But yeah, now they've under this new agreement, advertising dollars will come in, so I'm sure that the players are happy, the teams are happy, but the fans are probably not going to like it. And another player-friendly bullet point of this new deal is going to be the number of times a player can be optioned down to the minors. Now, the Yankees do this amongst other teams as well. And anytime you see it where, a pitcher gets hurt and they got to call someone up from the minors, they throw a game, and then they option him back to the minor leagues, and the person has to come up, go back down, go up, back down. Kind of annoying. Again, you're getting a crack to play at the majors, but again, kind of inconvenient for the players, I guess, in travel-wise, like that. Imagine this getting called and, you got to be, halfway across the country on a dime's notice. Well, obviously, players, I guess they got a little, they're saying, I guess, something in their favor. A team can now do that for the max of only 5 times throughout the whole season. And once they option down after that 5th time, they obviously have to either keep that player down in the minors or put them on waivers. And, in a way, I think it's good for baseball because, yeah, it's a 26-man roster, but, and again, the Yankees are guilty of doing this as well. They kind of cheese it a little bit, just bringing these players in just for throw one game and then they send them back down. So it's almost like you have really it's almost like you have a roster of 30 or 35 players because you're bringing players up and down all the time and option them down, option them up, option them down, option up. Also gets kind of confusing there. And again, it's kind of cheesing the system a little bit. So, and I'm sure for players, it's just, uncomfortable for them to just have to, pack a suitcase on a dime's notice and go across country and, start a game like that. So they want to limit that for the players just so they can get confident and stay wherever they are, keep them there for over at least a longer period of time, not up and down, up and down, up and down. So again, it's less flexibility for the general managers, but a little more comfortable for the players. And of course, every negotiation is give and get, so something that probably now the baseball and the baseball owners would like that is going to be opportunities for more international games, trying to get the games out there, places like Japan, as well as in Mexico, which we've seen in the past. Again, I remember the Yankees, I think when they first got A-Rod in 2004, they opened up in Japan for a couple of games. So, it's an opportunity more just to expand the game globally. I'm sure the players hate it. The managers probably hate it. The starting pitchers probably definitely hate it. But again, it's something for the baseball owners and Major League Baseball as an organization likes, just to get the game out there, get more internationals, sell more hats and T-shirts. But unfortunately, these players are going to get more jet lag and stuff like that. So similar to the NFL players when they play in London, they all hate it. And those games are usually just terrible to watch anyway. So just bringing more terrible now internationally. And speaking of terrible baseball, also a new rule now that teams can't tank. There will now be a draft lottery. As you may recall in years past, obviously usually the team with the worst record gets to pick first. And, not that anyone ever does this, but a lot of teams tend to pull the start, trade their best players, pull pitchers. Say, oh no, you eat the rest, bring up the rookie, let him get bombed. The whole idea is to have as many losses as possible. So if there's a hot new prospect coming up the pipes from college, obviously you want to get that draft pick, that high draft pick, and the way you do that is to tank. Well, baseball wants to get rid of that, so they will have a draft lottery. So even if you have the most losses, it still doesn't guarantee that you're going to get that first pick. It'll be a lottery similar to what they do in the NBA, again, just to prevent teams from tanking, which is terrible just for the fans and for the players. It's just miserable going there. There's no you're going to have an automatic loss and have your coach and general manager make moves and do things that's going to automatically make the team lose. Well, now if you have a draft lottery there, them having the most losses still doesn't guarantee them the top pick, so there's less of a motivation for these teams to tank. And also some more administration notes. The trade deadline, which traditionally used to be July 31st, is now being moved back to August 3rd. Kind of funky because sometimes the way the 31st lands, sometimes lands on a Sunday, and for some reason that screws everything up. So they figured, let's push the whole thing back a couple of days. So if it's August 3rd, no matter where it lands, it seems to be more convenient for people. And for the other teams, I think it gives them a little bit more time to just figure and realize, hey, are we in this or not? And maybe make a better decision. Whereas if you move it up to the 31st, they're kind of under the gun. Should we make this deal? May not make this deal. Perhaps by moving it back to third, again, you can evaluate the situation better, see if you're in this or not, and again, whether you want to make a trade or not for one of your players, or to bring, whether it's sending a player out or bringing a player in. Now, there's going to be some new rules in this deal that don't kick in for 2022, but will kick in 2023, and one of those is going to be the way interleague play rolls out. Now, interleague play, remember, back in the 97 when it first came out, it was kind of the hot new thing. And then after that, it kind of fizzled a little bit. And then, baseball has tried to, create these rivalries to spark it up a bit. But it really hasn't really taken off since that heat that it got back in 97. So baseball kind of wants to expand it maybe just to add more excitement. So the way of doing that is going to break down. It's going to be like this way. So now, as you know, that you always play your league rivals anywhere from about 18 to 19 times per season. Well, that's going to now be reduced to 14. So basically, you're going to play 56 games against teams within your own division. So if that's the Yankees, that means you can have 56 games that are going to be against teams in the AL East. Then after that, the other 60 games on top of that are just going to be other games within, teams in the NL Central, whether it's the West. So you'll play the rest of your league. Now, beyond that, you have your interleague play. Now, what this is going to be 4 games against your designated rival, which, of course, with the Yankees, it's going to be the Mets. So you'll have 2 and 2. 2 games at Citi Field, 2 games at Yankee Stadium, which the way baseball has been kind of doing it the past few seasons. But now the big change is that the remaining 42 games now are going to be against other interleague teams. So basically, you're going to be playing a lot more interleague games, and it's one of those situations where now you can see, like, for example, Yankee Dodgers every season instead of having to wait like once every 4 years. Now, how they're going to roll that out is that each season, the team's going to rotate that. So the next time the Yankees play the Dodgers, for example, let's just say the Yankees are the home team, and then the season after that, the Dodgers will be the home team. So it's just a way to maybe mix up baseball a little bit better, and I think does make it interesting. Again, someone made a note that, take someone like Ohtani, who's a great player, but let's say you're a National League fan and, he normally doesn't come to your ballpark and you kind of have to wait every 4 years to see him. Well, a possibility you'll have to wait 1 or 2 years because, again, these teams are going to be mixing up and playing each other. So that's the thing. That's the way, they want to mix up interleague. I don't love it because, again, I like some interleague play, but I just think the idea is that you should be playing more of your teams to see, for example, who's the best team in the AL. You do that by playing more teams in the American League, not playing like half your or like 1/3 your schedule against interleague National League teams. So I think it hurts the game a little bit, but I'm okay with them just trying out this to see, maybe again get some new interest, rivalry, get some fan interest. Just so fans might go to the ballpark to see a player that I used to seeing. So I'm okay with it for a year, but again, I don't really love the idea. I kind of the old way it was, where you'd play maybe 2 or 3 teams within whether your designated division that season, whether you're playing against, for the Yankees are playing against like National League Central and National League West, and just have that and that's it, a couple of games. All right, so that's kind of interesting, that's kind of fun. See my team in a different ballpark, that's it. But to expand it to that extent where American League teams and National League teams are now kind of playing almost half or at least 1/3 their schedule against the other division, I think it kind of waters things down a little bit. But again, they want to try it for one season. I'm okay with going along with it. Now, there's going to be some additional rules that you will see in the 2023 season on the majors, but they're going to enact them in 2022, this upcoming season in the minors. And some of these are a little controversial. Now, one of them is going to be larger bases, which, of course, you understand that's for more players to be safe. So, obviously, it's going to just increase batting averages. It's also going to increase stolen bases. And, I kind of like the move in some aspects. They're trying to bring the stolen base back into the game, which has kind of been gone. Again, the past couple of seasons, it's all been about, whether it's drawing walks, getting on base height, base percentages, and hoping someone hits a 3-run home run. And we've seen things like the stolen base, the double steal, a hit and run, those kind of little Billy Martin type of baseball, Billy baseball type of things have kind of escaped the game, and maybe they feel that's why, some of these games have just been unwatchable because there's like no action until maybe someone hits a 3-run home run in the 6th inning. Great, but like had to sit through like an hour and a half of like nothing before that. So it's a way to excite the game. So I'm okay with it, just trying it out a little bit. Now, another interesting one is they're going to do away with the shifts, which is, has killed a lot of batting average. I just think of like players like Mark Teixeira got killed by that. When the Yankees brought in Brian McCann, he got killed by that. And someone like Joey Gallo, who's hits 206. Imagine if he didn't have a shift, his batting average would probably be much higher. So I'm sure he loves the idea. And again, once they try it out in the minors in 2022, just kind of see how it works out. They're going to bring it up to the majors. And again, that's the same thing. It's to create more offense in the game because along with, just some of these pitches that come out throwing 100 miles per hour with spite attack and these funky slides and stuff, also the defensive shifts, I've also heard the game where similar, there's no action going on. It's a strikeout, strikeout, strikeout. Eventually someone hits a home run, strikeout, 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 strikeout. No action going on the base. So obviously now getting rid of the defensive shift, it's going to allow players to use more of the field. And again, you'll see more offense. Again, creates more offense, and then more fan interest, more ratings, the whole 9 yards with that. And again, another one, interesting one, this one's going to be very controversial. I'm not sure if this one really would make it in the majors, but they're going to try it in the minors. It's going to be the automated strike zone. Again, it's something they've tinkered with and talked about for a while. And again, how many bad calls we see like that, and just people are fed up. And, even with instant replay, again, some plays plays are replayable, but of course balls and strikes aren't, and again, a lot of people get fed up with some of these umpires and stuff like that. And just think of someone like Aaron Judge, who gets so many called strikes at his ankle, which is ridiculous. So they're going to try to do some automated strike zone in the minors, see how that works. And again, if it's green lighted, good chance somehow, in some way, in some fashion, you may see it up here in the majors. I just think somehow the umpire's going to push back against that because that just kind of almost makes them useless, and it's kind of embarrassing for them. Imagine if they call a ball and things called a strike and vice versa. I just don't think that's something that they'd want to okay, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But at least for the larger base and for the defensive shift, that's going to be inactive in the minors, and again, you'll see it then in the majors in 2023. So it's great to know we'll have baseball this season, a full season, and then the way this thing was dragging out, it was getting a little bit ugly, especially when you look at what's going on the other side of the world between Russia and Ukraine, and I just don't think people get really sympathetic anymore. What's going on, again, as I say, millionaires fighting billionaires, but I understand, each side had to dig in and get what they had to get, but again, I think fans are starting to get a little tuned out on it, and it's just good to finally put it to bed. And yes, we'll have baseball starting April 7th, and again, for the Yankees, made themselves a little better with this deal. I wouldn't say it's a home run of the deal, but they have improved themselves a little bit with the offense, and basically on par with defense. And again, you kind of send Sanchez packing, which is just unfortunate, never worked out with him here. And again, even if you look at last season, the most important game of the year, that last game up in Fenway, Cole's not throwing to him. And even the year before that, Game 5 against the Rays, Cole's not throwing to him. And it's like he's supposed to be a catcher, and you can't even use the guy. So he's in Minnesota. Hopefully he could maybe get it together there and it works out for him. But for here, we're not going to have Gary to kick around anymore.